Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. I always love when we have some rock star women with us, Jerry, on the podcast. And we have not just rock star women, these are icons in Edtech. And I am so happy to hear all about the book that the four of these rock stars have collaborated on, these tech savvy women.
Well, Jamie, let me tell you, they are so tech savvy that we all were delayed on getting on because Diane found new things we could do in this program. And so it was like she opened a box and we all ran out, tried to change things up, and
we didn't want to be left out.
Yeah, that's how savvy they are. They just are in it to win it. But today we do. We have four icons in the tech world, four women that have done amazing things for EdTech, and they continue to blaze a trail for other women.
Ladies, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. You know, you have not only been trailblazers in the EdTech world for EdTech and for education, but also for the people in general in EdTech. So you've been just so supportive, wonderful mentors. And that's really what your book is all about, isn't it?
It's really, Jamie, I'm so glad you brought that up because the four of us, when we began conversing, we were at a Women in Leadership event, Jamie, that you hosted. And we came up with the idea of, we've been talking about leadership and educational technology and advancing and promoting the work of our community. And separately, we're like, I don't have time. And the four of us said, you know what? We should put our heads together and write a book and let that be our legacy work of help building practice in the community. And so we began in earnest. Between the four of us, we don't want anybody counting, but we've got about 120 years of EdTech and leadership experience. We're not going to say that I am the oldest and have the most, even though I need to get some hair color done. But the point being that we felt very focused on the idea of putting down in writing to help build capacity for other leaders. And we worked on it for almost 18 months, right, Frankie? I think it was about 18 months.
Yes. Yeah.
And Jamie, the other thing that was kind of on our hearts at the time is, and I tell people this in the CoSN Academy all the time, it's just like, I learned in 40 years about EdTech leadership what you guys are expected to learn in 40 days.
Yeah.
In other words, you can get a checklist for, how to, or what to do about cybersecurity, or you can get a plan for procurement. But there's really nothing out there that prepares people to navigate the leadership skills, the soft skills that are needed to work with the board, to work with the superintendent, to get buy-in. And so I think that was kind of our heart, was there's plenty out there about checklists about how to do the technical part or even how to do PD or whatever. But there was nothing out there that kind of helped you to navigate and hone in on those soft skills. So that was very important to us.
Can you back us up a little bit and just share, because you mentioned your many years collectively, but what were your roles and where were your roles? Because you're kind of spread out. It's not as if you worked together all these years. You're all spread out and have come together and realized just the power of the four of you collectively. But give us a little bit about your background. Frankie, you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. Glad you called on me first. I think, one of the things I really admire about this group is the diversity in our backgrounds. And so, for example, I have a very technical background. I have a software engineering undergraduate degree, and I actually started out as a computer programmer and working in the NASA environment. And through that experience, I was able to gain some solid technical skills and putting up the space shuttle and working on space station contracts, I would say are probably as technical as they get. But, really working out in industry those first 10 years of my career, and then having 3 children in the meantime, joining K-12 as a director of technology, because that was even before the time that there was a chief technology officer position title for that. I think it was probably around 2005. The position of CTO, chief technology officer, came into being, and I moved into that role. So I served in that role for K-12 for 25 years. And I always had a strategy in mind that after my children got out of college, I never said I had to go back to NASA, but I said that I wanted to move to the state and national levels and support at a higher level. So the ground floor of working through associations and developing content for some of the leading associations in our nation, for example, with the Certified Education Technology Leader, serving as a facilitator for that, and also project management. I knew I wanted to move into this role as a leader, a thought partner at the state and national level. So the timing was just perfect in 2019 for me to make a third career change. So since 2019, I've been working in this realm, and I have a love for writing. Even in my personal life, I've written 2 other books related to mother-daughter relationships. So when I met these fine 3 ladies and we could team up together, I'd actually signed a contract with a leading publisher, education publisher, to write a CTO handbook. And I never finished that and I never start something that I don't finish. But I didn't finish it because I kind of long to work with other like-minded women and people. And when I found these ladies and all of our experiences just kind of meshed like a perfect puzzle, we came together and then wrote the book. And it was probably one of the highlights in my career, working with these ladies. So thank you for asking.
So wonderful. I didn't know, I've known you for many years, but I didn't know all of those pieces. Quite impressive. Amazing. Diane, how about you?
Yes, former classroom teacher who had an aptitude for technology, right? When the server needed to be reset in my elementary school, who was the best friend with the district technician? It was me. One of the first to get the internet in the classroom and all those types of things. And I think I saw that leadership within myself. So I worked toward a master's degree in educational technology. I was a classroom teacher at the middle school then and taught computer applications in Neenah, Wisconsin, which is a smaller school district, maybe 6,000 students. And it was our female superintendent who said, okay, you are now the technology leader. I would like to make you the director of technology. It was the first within the school district. We had always had consultants. And the big debate by the school board was, do we get a technical person who knows the box and wires? Or do we get a person who knows education and has an aptitude toward technology? I'm glad they chose the latter, right? And so I moved from classroom teacher to director of technology. I got my tech coordinator license. It's called here in Wisconsin. And that kind of made it put you at the administrative position. I worked in Neenah for 4 years as director of technology, and I got a call from a recruiter who said, there's a new superintendent in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is about 40 miles up the highway of death, I call it, from Neenah. And she's putting together a new team that I think you're going to be interested in. So that piqued my interest enough to apply for the position. And I feel fortunate to then have been able to serve as Chief Technology and Information Officer for Green Bay Area Public Schools for 6 years. At that time, though, 2019 came along. My parents were retired farmers who had to be in a nursing home for a while or assisted living, but they checked themselves out because they knew I was of retirement age. And so they said, Diane, you can take care of us. And so I did. I retired from Green Bay Area Public Schools, even though I loved the job. The time spent with parents is there's never enough time.
Right.
And so I chose to spend that time with parents and care for them as much as I could while working a remote job. I was retired for a full weekend and then started working at Digital Promise. And so I was part of the Verizon Innovative Learning Schools project for a few years and then moved to Digital Promise Greater. And we support all our employees throughout the nation with, the VPN, their laptop, all the apps they use, guiding them in AI, all the things that all our CTOs are doing, but in a nonprofit space. So that's where I am now.
Fantastic.
That's amazing. And we have a very similar initial trajectory in the classroom, the techie teacher up to technology director, brought up by a mentor, very similar. So Frankie, you're in Texas, Wisconsin. Diane, where are we going now? Donna?
Okay. I don't think anybody's going to wonder where I'm from, Jamie, because I have a pretty thick Southern accent. And my path was a little bit different. I was in graduate school. I had just gotten married and very young. And I was in graduate school. I was a business ed teacher, we're now called career tech. So when I went back to get my master's in secondary education, I had a professor that was head of the department. And at the time, I thought she was ancient. I think she was about 40. But because she is still with us today and that we still communicate. And she came to me early on in my master's work and said, this was before there were any computers in schools. There were a few in Minnesota with MEC. And she said, I think that at the time she said computers will be big in education one day. Would you like to be a guinea pig? And I was currently working as a teacher in a private school because I had just moved to Birmingham, Alabama, and that was the only teaching job I could get. And so I said, sure, I'll do it. And so together we did a lot of research, wrote a book that was a curriculum guide for K-6 on the introduction of technology to the children in schools. And so right when I was finishing my master's, one of the all Title I districts had a very forward-thinking superintendent, and he called her and said, I want to designate a person over technology. And I'm not embarrassed to say, I can't lie about my age if you met my children. It was in 1982. And so I was hired as one of the first ever technology coordinators in the country, and very young at the time. And so I was there for 12 years. And because that was pre-networks, I also taught all the technical classes. So I taught students how to tear apart a computer, fix computers, the first applications. We did PC repair. And then when networks came along, I taught them. And I had to learn usually the day before how to wire buildings and robotics and all of those things. And then fast forward 12 years later, one of the most affluent districts in the state called and said, we want to have someone over our technology. Will you come and talk to us? And being, as my husband calls it sometimes, young and dumb, I said, well, I don't know. Let me see. Now, this is one of the most high achieving affluent districts in the country. And so when I talked to him, I said, I want to continue my work in the state. I want to continue the work I've already done nationally, and I want to do it on your dime. And they said, okay. So they let me continue. I got to work on all the state committees and the first national committees, and I was there for 25 years. During that time, I served on the CoSN board, which I had met Sheryl prior to that when we were serving on an advisory board for a company. And it started back then. They would not let us sit together anywhere we ever were because we were always trouble and challenging the rules and moving forward. And then in 2019, I literally had maxed out with 39 years in the public school system. And CoSN called and asked me if I wanted to head up something. Keith Kruger had an idea for a early career CTO academy for early career and aspiring people. And that gave me the opportunity to do what I always loved, which was to teach. And so I've been doing that for the last 6 years and love it. Sheryl is now my co-partner in crime, and Frankie and Diane both serve as thought partners. And we have about 80 people in there this year from across the country. And I think that they would agree with me that that was one of the catalysts for me for writing the book, because I saw what they needed. And that was those leadership skills, those soft skills. So I got to go back to doing what I love, which was teaching after all those years of being first a technology coordinator, then it became director, and then it became CTO through the years. And I love it and enjoy it and appreciate these ladies working with it. And now Sheryl and I talk every day about the Academy because it's so exciting. And Jerry's on our calls, and we so much appreciate you doing that, Jerry. You always bring so much life and fun to everything. But anyway, we're continuing to do that and continuing to learn, because they face challenges every day that I think all four of us would say when with working with these early career and aspiring CTOs. It's fun to be able to work with the next generation of EdTech leaders. So have a blast.
Amazing. I'll have some questions about that after we hear about Sheryl's trajectory. Sheryl, last but not least.
My pathway and trajectory is pretty different from my colleagues here because I started in one place and stayed in that one place. I'm the former CTO of the Calcasieu Parish Schools in Lake Charles, Louisiana. It was a rural, suburban, urban district, about 34,000 students, and I began as a teacher there. Back when there was no technology, people couldn't spell. The technology was an overhead projector and some markers. And so I taught school, and there was an opportunity to be certified after I already had my master's in library and media science. And so I went back to get certified because my elementary school is going to open up a library. The principal said, if you want this library, you better get certified because I know you're very strong in literature, all that stuff. So I went back and got certified, took a year off, and became a library media specialist in the district in several schools. And that is where I first met the thing I've never been able to let go of was a computer. And it was back in the day when there was no internet, there was no dial-up, there were some very basic Texas Instrument 99.4A with cartridges that we programmed on cassette tape with little turtles going around. And my principal was like, I don't know what this is. I said, just buy me what I need. I'm gonna take this where we need to go. And so began that work, hooked up. There were no filters, ran the district bulletin board service where people were able to dial in, and we connected internationally. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew what I was doing. But there I was in stealth mode, working with the teachers in the school, getting funds, putting computers in their classroom, writing grants. And so I was going to be a principal. So principalships opened up. I moved into the principalship and immediately began to replicate that work as a library media specialist, writing grants and getting computers for teachers. Wired, the first school in Louisiana, maybe one of the first in the country for the internet. And we used coaxscape, which people probably listening to this are like, what? No, there was no Ethernet. It was coax. Set up a server. I was not as technical as Frankie and Donna and Diane, but I figured I needed to learn it. And there was no connectivity anywhere. When I called the district office and said I need a connection, they were like, you have one. I said, it's to a business connection. I need an internet connection. Anyway, long story short, wired that school, went to another school, wired it. And as Diane mentioned, I think, and Frankie and Donna referenced, in the early infancy, they were looking for leaders. Well, like Diane, Sheryl, you're the girl. And I was like, no, Sheryl's not the girl. Sheryl is going to be the chief academic officer. And the superintendent and the school principal was like, no, you the girl. Well, I applied for the job and there was a bunch of technical people. And I can remember during that interview, the superintendent and chief academic officer, chief finance officer, when I said, if you're looking for somebody who can climb up in a rack or program a switch, I'm not your girl. They said, we wouldn't be interviewing you if that's what we're looking for. We're looking for someone to lead the district, to pull together what we need to do to advance and support students with this new innovative technology thing. So I began, and I was an administrative coordinator of technology, something kind of like you, Diane. And then they realized, wait a minute. And when the time was right, I became the chief technology officer. Started with 3 employees, ended up, I think, with 45. And similar to my colleagues, I hit the max. I was CTO for almost 25 years. And then my husband kept saying to me every day, you realize you lose money when you go to work? So I retired, and people laugh and say, I thought you retired. I said, no, I retired from going to school board meeting. But I didn't retire from doing this work. And of course, new colleagues around the country. As Donna mentioned, I served on the CoSN board. I was chair, began with ISTE, helped writing the first technology standards, continued to write all those ISTE standards with colleagues around the country, and knew Frankie from a meeting when we did some Baldrige quality work together in Houston. I was Louisiana, met Diane, knew Donna from service. And, I like to say the forces brought us together. The timing was right, and we saw the same need in the country for leadership, and to put that down in a concrete way that wasn't a telling book, but was a resource book with strategies to help lead and build capacity in whether it's a school district or an organization. We felt like and feel like the work that we did can help anyone with strategies in terms of a leadership role, Edtech, other kinds of leadership, superintendents. And so we're grateful that it turned out okay. We weren't sure. We had many discussions, Zoom for almost a year and a half every Friday morning about where's it going to go. And so I had worked with ISTE for years. And so we pitched it to ISTE, and they said yes. They immediately gave us contracts. It went to an editor. I think the 4 of us are proud to say we didn't get edited. Maybe they should have edited us a little bit, but we didn't get edited. And so we went to publication, and we're grateful, Jamie, for you and Jerry and ClassLink support for the work we've done over the years, and certainly putting the books in lots of leaders' hands. And so, but we're still on a journey. I would say the 4 of us are still on a journey of not only our own continuous improvement, but help colleagues anywhere and anytime at any place to kind of pay it forward, because we led charmed lives personally and professionally. And so I think we're still about paying it forward, as Jamie, as you and Jerry are paying it forward.
Back then, it was different for technology leaders, very different than it is today. So through your experiences, through your experience with meeting and learning through the Academy of, for new green EdTech leaders, what did you find that is most needed that informed your book? So what are some of the themes in your book? What are some of the things that you realize are necessary for those coming up? What'd you find?
I'd like to go back to something Sheryl said that is something that I see a lot, is that so many people get that role, and it comes 50% or, from a technical side, 50% from an instructional side. Well, actually it's about 40-40 now, and about 20 come from everything from having been an assistant superintendent, a principal, in an already leadership role. But so many times when you get in that position, you think what Sheryl said in her interview, which is you think that they are wanting to get that person that is so strong technically. And I had a very wise superintendent tell me one time, it was after hours, I went up to because there was nobody else there. He was having a problem with the computer and I was fixing it. And he goes, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Well, because you called and said it wasn't working." And he said, "I didn't hire you to be the technician. I hired you to be the visionary. And I don't think you can do both." And I think so many early career, and I know that Frankie's writing a blog on this and she beat me to it. I wanted to write one too. Maybe we'll collaborate on the imposter syndrome. So I find that they're overwhelmed. The time management and that ability to get that seat at the table and be viewed as something other than a break fix person. So that was a skill. And I think we really want to try to help them elevate themselves to be the leader and not the break fix, or not the person that's going to deliver the PD, but that visionary person. I think that was probably the number one thing, is to elevate yourself into being a leader and a visionary to lead a whole district.
And I
to
guess
see
that's the
yourself as
pivot.
that.
There's a pivot there that they don't,
Yes.
that it's hard for them to make that shift. And
Yes.
because of the imposter syndrome probably makes it even harder often.
Donna,
Yeah.
as you talk
Yeah.
about that, it reminds me of the work of Ron Heifetz that's talked so much about technical versus adaptive leadership. And it sounds like the book focuses more on the adaptive, because the technical, my goodness, ladies, has that changed in the last 2 years? With AI, now
Right.
that's the technical leadership, but we always can handle the technical piece. That's pretty
Yes.
easy. But the adaptive is the really tough piece to change a culture, to change a way of thinking, and to move people forward. It
And to be
sounds like,
able to lead people.
yes, and it
You know,
sounds
you
like you
manage things,
focus
you lead people.
on that and those timeless issues. Those are things that are timeless. One of you said that the book was for anyone, and I have to vouch for that. We were at FETC and I saw you ladies and you said, "Do you have a book yet?" And I said, "No." And so you handed me one, and Donna had a long conversation with my daughter, and my daughter said, "I get it first." And so she's reading it and she's not even in technology. So it truly is a book for anyone that is in leadership.
Jamie, you asked the question about, what's the book about, and, what has really changed and what's really needed in terms of a leadership perspective, and kind of building on what Donna talked about. I call it an executive presence. You can have a vision, but you have to have the skills to be able to articulate and communicate and influence what that vision is and get others to buy into it. And then you also have to have this realm of skills to be able to go to board of trustees, step up what I call the podium, make your pitch, back off, wait for them to ask questions, be able to answer the right kind of questions and anticipate what kind of questions they're going to have in advance and get to yes. Because at the bottom line is, it's all a matter of getting to yes, for them to approve all of those years of 25 years working through 6 bonds. The last one, $1.2 billion bond, is getting to yes. You can do all of the groundwork, but if you don't have that executive presence to step up and get the superintendent, the executive cabinet, and the school board and the community to align, to fund the technology initiatives that you're presenting, then you might as well just go back to the drawing board. So a lot of the topics that we wrote about were the political end of how to navigate in this Edtech space. So it's very exciting.
That is very interesting, and also goes to, speaks to our AI world and the worry of, AI taking over and not needing to have these skills. But it's actually just the opposite. It's the human intelligences that are so important, and having these executive leadership skills are essential. You can do all the work in the world, but if you can't communicate it in a proper manner, it's going nowhere.
And feel
So
that excitement with it. And
yeah.
Jamie, this is the last thing I'll say, because I want my colleagues to have fair share to communicate. One of the things that we talked about in reference to AI is that after every section of the book,
Mhm.
we challenged ourselves to say, can AI do this? Because if it's something that AI can do and you can ask a question and a prompt and get the same response, then it's not valuable. And so we tried to add our stories and our experience into the technicalities and the substance of the content that we are presenting. And I think that's what the difference is in our book, and that's what's going to make the difference in the future for leadership.
Did each of you focus on a different area in leadership, or I think 4 people working on a book could be quite chaotic. How did
It was so fun.
Frankie Jackson and her Google Sheets and her
Google
Google
Sheets.
Doc. And if there is a girl that needs a tattoo that says Googlicious, it's Frankie Jackson.
And I'm really a Microsoft girl, but one of the things that we did was we didn't do that at all, Jerry. We started out with kind of an annual theme. So we said, okay, we're going to have 52 topics. We're going to have 12 months. We're going to have 5 strategies. And that's kind of the original layout of the book. And so we each took 13 topics, and we just wrote off the top of our head what was
But we
important to
brainstormed
us.
about the topics now, girls.
Yeah.
We did. We were sitting there and maybe perhaps having a glass of wine.
That
That may have influenced the topics. But, we were brainstorming because we had gotten a day early when we went to the leadership conference. And we're sitting around. I think Diane had brought some cheese or whatever. And we're brainstorming about different topics.
She's still
And,
telling the whole story, but go on.
I'm trying to be good, which is unusual for me. But so we brainstormed about the topics and then just started listing them and then paring them down, and literally went through and said, you pick, you put your name by 12, I'll put my name by 12. And the interesting thing to me is, because I am such a type A person, I kept thinking, okay, ISTE is going to want one voice. They're going to want to rewrite this to sound like one voice. And they were like, no, we want the 4 different voices. We want the personalities. And so you can read through it, and people that know us well will go, did Frankie write that section? And you'll go, yeah. Did Diane write that? Because you can see the personality, and because we have such diverse backgrounds, different types of school districts and experiences, you can see that. So it's really is so applicable for somebody with a district of 300, which we have some of those in the academy, to one of 1,500 people, because, those strategies will work for anyone.
I think that's the value proposition.
Me too.
Jamie, you ask, what's in the book? The value proposition is, if you get the book and read the book, and you don't have to read it in order. That's the other beautiful piece people have told us.
Handbook.
They pull out what they need. One of the things I think, and that I know one of the things I wrote about, and it's kind of a thread, it's about building allies, building colleagues. When you come from one job and then you move to a job at the district level, as Frankie said, where you've got the podium, you better have the podium. You better know what to do with the podium when you get it. And you need to have built allyship or colleagues or comrades around the district, because it's not just about the technology. That's one of the things we focused on. And then I'm going to lead to Diane with this, because that's something that she focused on. It's not just about the technology. You've got to build relationships with the people in academics, the people in transportation. If you're going to manage bus routing, with the people in security, with the people that have to do with food services. You better be really friendly with the board, and you and the superintendent better be tight and understand what the vision and the mission of the district is. And you need to replicate and pull that back down into your department, so that everybody's pulling the wagon and the team of horses all moving in the same direction. But you've got to have allies. You can't sit there in the technology department and be the sole boss of things and think that your edicts, and you're going to be CTO of NO when you got to be the CTO of KNOW. So that's what led us through this, is knowing that we couldn't just be the technology gurus. We had to help people placed in any leadership position to own their place, build their own capacity with strategies and tactics and stories and best practices that anybody can pull out any place in the book and apply to their own work. And quite frankly, I'd say life, and grow from it. Diane, you remember those conversations?
Oh, yes. You know, I, all through my career, have said technology is the easy part. It's the people that requires the most work, right? Technology is zeros and ones, but there are always people who are going to be peopling. And if you look at the book, you'll see I do write a lot about the relationship type of things, building off, what Donna says that people, CTOs are busy. And so they need a through line, a straight line to what could some answers be? What are some strategies? And that's something that we really did hone in on because we want to save people time. We want this book to be an investment of time. If you can read some parts of this book, it will give you strategies that will save you X amount of time, right? Everyone loves that economic type of look at it, but people are going to be people through this. And so, as Frankie talked about, influence, what does that look like? What does inspiration look like? Hire somebody. I mean, really hard to put into words, right? How you inspire someone or how you help people feel good about the relationship they have with you or about the things that you are doing. How do you make them or help them feel good and hold their head up high so that they can move forward and do their jobs with pride, right? These are the types of things that you don't read in, the how-to
Yeah.
manuals
Yeah.
of technology. And so those are the things that we have kind of uncovered as secret sauce because everyone can do the technology stuff. You can teach them those things. But we all have been so fortunate enough to have people in our lives who do inspire, who do help you feel good about yourself. And, in the worst of times, who help you think even deeper and come up with the most intelligent answers that you even surprise yourself at that you got, right? And you say, I want to be like that. And fortunately, I look at the screen and I'm looking at women who have helped me get to where, I'm pushed harder. And we're hoping that we can do the same for the people who read our book.
I love that. I love the way you explain that, Diane, because that really speaks to the importance of being a leader. So, and a lot of what you said comes with either, being in a tech leader or being another type of leader. But the problem with being a tech leader often is sometimes the trajectory is very similar to the way you all described. Someone sees some really strong leadership, some tech savviness, techiness, and kind of, taps you and brings you up. But sometimes you don't have some past experience. Sometimes you don't have any knowledge of the political aspect, of the people aspect, of the importance of elevating others, of the importance of inspiring others. So while these folks may have this excitement of this trajectory, often with the feeling of, having a fire hose, right? Here, this book is a chance for them to be reflective and learn about all of the other components that are going to actually be the things that make them successful. Because as you said, they can learn the tech things as they go, but these things, they may not even know that they're important. But if they're given a heads up by using your secret sauce book, then, and I have it here, and I was just looking for it before. I wanted to hold it up. I'm sure one of you have it. You can hold it up, please. Frankie. No, thank you. There it is. It really is a gift, a true gift, I think, that you have provided. So
One of the things, and I'm gonna dovetail over to Frankie, but I don't want to miss it. I think one of the gifts, Jamie, is that you mentioned in the book is in terms of growing yourself. It's hard to know where you need to go if you don't know where you are.
yes, right.
And one of the things that we built into the book, and you don't even have to buy the book, if you go to our webpage or look at our blogs, is a free self-assessment. Frankie, talk a little bit about that because
Nice.
Frankie was our champion to say to us, we have got to do an assessment to help people understand and ground them where they are, if they use the book as a catalyst to grow their own professional growth. But Frankie, talk about that, because like I said, you were our champion on that. It really pushed us.
I kind of forgot all about that, Cheryl. We did so much in such a short amount of time. But one of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to provide a roadmap for growth. We wanted to put together a strategy for improvement. Kind of goes back to continuous improvement and our backgrounds in the technical fields. But basically, we went into all 52 sections of the book and then pulled out what we thought was the most important thing about it, and then turned it into a statement so that one that would be taking the survey could answer on a scale of 1 to 5, so that they could answer 52 questions that were completely aligned with the book, and then somewhat pull out a roadmap for improvement to look at the lower scoring areas that they might want to dive into in the book. And the assessment is tailored around chapters and around topics and sections. And so it's very specific, aligned to the book to offer some immediate guidance. And I think we're really proud about that.
So the hope was you could take this assessment and realize, as Frankie said, where are some areas that I could work on, that I could improve? And then people go, oh, well, yes, this book, look, here's the book. It will help you. Buy the book and you'll be able to improve those areas. But on our web page, we offer all this, our blogs, everything we've done. We post the presentations we've made. It's savvyedtechleader.com. We quite frankly poured our own resources into it to get it built and to keep it up. And the four of us are continually feeding into our website. Yeah, new content to grow leaders, and that are a supplement to our book. And all that's free. I mean, we like them to buy the book, right, ladies? But we're still continuing to contribute, I think, on our webpage and with our blogs and the work. And that Diane has set us up calendar events that all of us every month are writing these 2 blogs. And we have a calendar event that says, oh, my blog is due.
It's like, oh, they're going to get mad at me if I don't get busy and get it done.
We have a lot of pressure from each other.
As you're talking about all these skills, the executive presence, those sound daunting to someone new to the field, and the imposter syndrome. But what is really remarkable about the work that you've done is, if I'm stepping into that role, I could do the self-assessment. I don't have to read the whole book. I can go to where my need is today and maybe get some guidance. This is genius, ladies. It's really
It's that direct line right to the remedy, right? Or right to the strategy. So none of this having to read through everything.
Right.
Take the assessment, find those areas of gap, and then go right to it.
We want to get right to it, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Diane and I got to talk to a class, one of the professors of a graduate class, actually it's for principals and assistant principals, is using the book in his graduate class. And so it just so happened that Saturday morning that Diane and I were the only 2 of the 4 of us that were available. The others were, I think, at a conference presenting. And I think Diane would agree, the questions that, like, these people are not going into EdTech. They're trained to be principals and assistant principals, like an admin type course. And they all had some questions because he got them all a book, so they had the book, they'd gotten to read the book, and they were applying much like your daughter, Jerry, they were applying those strategies to be a principal or an assistant principal. Because other than the word EdTech, you could do a search and replace and just use the word leadership.
Sure.
And they were very interesting questions, but even those students were having the same dilemmas that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely not just EdTech leaders.
So you provided your website, but the book is actually published by ISTE. That's right. You said that earlier, right?
Yes.
Yes. So people can find it at your website. They can find it at ISTE's publications. And then is it on Amazon also? I believe?
It is. It's 75 cents cheaper, I think, on Amazon or something.
Look at
And
that.
It's on Target.
Savvy EdTech Leader, and they ship it right to you. So, it's so easy to be a great leader. with the Savvy Edtech
that's
leader
right.
book on
Like,
Amazon.
we'll make it easy. So you've got the book, you've got the blog. When are you starting your own podcast, ladies?
We've talked about that.
Yeah.
We also talked about swag.
Oh, of course we need to
Yes.
swell out.
We need some swag. Yeah. We need a
Sarah?
picture. We need a picture.
We need some time. We
Yeah,
need to
that's
figure
what
out
we
when we're
really
going to
need.
sleep.
That
Yeah. We're all working. We're all
Yeah.
working
Savvy
in the
sisters
field.
healthy crowd.
The other thing you
Yes.
didn't ask about, Jamie, that I might ask if when I think about working with a group of 4 ladies, is that throughout the entire time, not one time did we have one disagreement or one cattiness that
That's
I recall.
right.
We
I'm not
just
surprised.
worked together seamlessly. And, you would think that there might be
Right.
something that might occur, but not one time when like, for example, Diane had some travel to do. We said, well, I'll step up and do our part that's due. Or Sheryl said, whatever we needed to do, we pretty much just band together and got it done. And I think that says a lot about working in teams, collaborating, in leadership, because it doesn't matter where you are, you've got to be able to work with people.
right.
Well, and using the
Absolutely.
technology
Yeah.
was so powerful that I'm not sure 20 years ago we could have done this on a telephone.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But being on
Right.
Zoom face to face,
Yeah.
them making me wake up much earlier than I wanted to, and me doing most of the Zoom in my pajamas. And then the collective, I don't want to say inertia, but it really was that we didn't want to let each other down.
That's right. Success
Um,
partners.
Yeah.
We'll talk about
When
that.
there was a time and something had to be submitted for us to look and edit each other's work, because we all read everybody's work, added comments. And so, Frankie, I think you make a valid point that I think the work we did is a model for the book of how do you collaborate? How do you build capacity? Whether you're men and women or all men or whatever the blend may be, we termed ourselves the Savvy Sisters.
Yeah.
Because through
We
this
still do.
work, we know way more than we will ever share about all of our personal lives. And
The S goes with a lot of things, okay?
there's a lot of stuff about
And
writing the book over
we
this
still
time
meet
together.
every other week.
Yeah.
On Friday mornings
Yes.
to continue what's next.
That's going to be your podcast recording time because you already have it scheduled. So you can plan that out. But I'm not surprised that the 4 of you had no issues working together because each of you you're a class act, each of you. So, I mean, obviously, and I think that, again, like you mentioned, Sheryl, it's a model for the collaboration that you speak of in the book and the importance of communication and working toward a shared goal. So kudos to the 4 of you. Wonderful book. And as I mentioned before, a gift to everyone. I don't think you have to be in EdTech to use it. It's really for leadership in general.
That's right.
So it really is a gift. So congratulations.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Jamie. Thank you for having us, Jamie.
Yes, both
You
of you.
bet.
We're so grateful for y'all's support as other women leaders.
I can't do that very well.
Yep, my heart's a little-
My fingers don't go that way.
my heart's tired. It's shaking.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.